turn it off? Can you turn it off? Oh, it's on there. Oh, that's you. Oh. Anyway, we'll struggle on. This is also, I think, a little loud. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari and Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavina Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Now before we begin, I forgot to mention Vakreshwar Pandit's appearance day. Dharma Sethi remembered to mention it, but he forgot to read about him. So if we can, I'm going to read a little bit about him today. It's very interesting. Did you know that he could dance for 72 hours straight without stopping? 72 hours. Okay. So, on this third day of July 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are beginning chapter 16 today, entitled The Divine and Demoniac Natures. And it begins on text 650, on page 615. Can we close that door somewhat, just for the noise sake, to kind of minimize the noise? Still, it's relatively quiet. I think it's okay. It'll be done. Okay. So, two of you will probably be chanting the verse in response. So, just chant one of these three. There's three here. So you can chant one and then two and go from there. Okay. Texts 1 to 3 in chapter 16. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayam Sattva Sangshuddhir. All right. We're going to start again. We're going to increase our voice by 50%. You let me know when you're ready. You ready? Okay. All right, I'm going to start again. I'm sorry. Somehow I'm very sensitive to the noise. I think that door is open, you know, the one that swings. And maybe this door and to the altar might be open also. Something is letting it come through. Okay. On this third day of July, 2018 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Beginning a new chapter, chapter 16, entitled The Divine and Demoniac Natures. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayam Sattva Sangshuddhir Jnana Yoga Vavastitihi Dhanam Damascha Yagyascha Svadhyayastapa Arjavam Ahimsa Satyamakrodhas Tyagakshantidapaishunam Dayabhuteshvaloluptvam Mardabang Hrir Achapalam Tejakshamadvati Shaucham Adroho Natimanita Pavanti Sambadham Daivim Abhijatasya Bharata. Go ahead, Damina. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayam Sattva Sangshuddhir Jnana Yoga Vavastitihi Dhanam Damascha Yagyascha Svadhyayastapa Arjavam Ahimsa Satyamakrodhas Tyagakshantadapaishunam Dayabhuteshvaloluptvam Mardavam Hrirchapalam. We are on page 615. Just listen? All right. I'm going to read the synonyms. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, Abhayam, fearlessness, Sattva Sangshuddhi, purification of one's existence, Jnana, in knowledge, Yoga, of linking up, Vyavastitihi, the situation, Dhanam, charity, Damaha, controlling the mind, Cha, and Yagyaha, performance of sacrifice, Cha, and Svadhyayaha, study of Vedic literature, Tapaha, austerity, Arjavam, simplicity, Ahimsa, non-violence, Satyam, truthfulness, Akrodaha, freedom from anger, Tyaga, renunciation, Shanti, tranquility, Apaishunam, aversion to fault-finding, Daya, mercy, Bhuteshu, towards all living entities, Aloluptvam, freedom from greed, Mardavam, gentleness, Ri, modesty, Achapalam, determination, Tejaha, vigor, Chama, forgiveness, Dhritihi, fortitude, Shaucham, cleanliness, Adrohaha, freedom from envy, Na, not, Atimanita, expectation of honor, Bhavanti, are, Sampadam, the qualities, Daivim, the transcendental nature, Abhijatasya, of one who is born of Bharata, O son of Bharat. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, nonviolence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O scion of Bharat, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. Purport. In the beginning of the 15th chapter, the banyan tree of this material world was explained. The extra roots coming out of it were compared to the activities of the living entities, some auspicious, some inauspicious. In the 9th chapter, also, the devas, or godly, and the asuras, the ungodly, or demons, were explained. Now, according to Vedic rites, activities in the mode of goodness are considered auspicious for progress on the path of liberation, and such activities are known as Daivi Prakriti, transcendental by nature. Those who are situated in the transcendental nature make progress on the path of liberation. For those who are acting in the modes of passion and ignorance, on the other hand, there is no possibility of liberation. Either they will have to remain in this material world as human beings, or they will descend among the species of animals or even lower life forms. In this 16th chapter, the Lord explains both the transcendental nature and its attendant qualities, and the demoniac nature and its qualities. He also explains the advantage and disadvantages of these qualities. The word abhijata is in reference to one born of transcendental qualities or godly tendencies is very significant. To beget a child in a godly atmosphere is known in the Vedic scriptures as garbhadhana sanskar. If the parents want a child in the godly qualities, they should follow the 10 principles recommended for the social life of the human being. In the Bhagavad Gita, we have studied also about before that sex life for begetting a good child is Krishna himself. Sex life is not condemned, provided the process is used in Krishna consciousness. Those who are in Krishna consciousness, at least, should not beget children like cats and dogs, but should beget them so that they may become Krishna conscious after birth. That should be the advantage of children born of a father and mother absorbed in Krishna consciousness. The social institution, known as Varnashram Dharma, the institution dividing society into 4 divisions of spiritual life and 4 occupational divisions or castes, is not meant to divide human society according to birth. Such divisions are in terms of educational qualifications. They are to keep the society in a state of peace and prosperity. The qualities mentioned herein are explained as transcendental qualities meant for making a person progress in spiritual understanding so that he can get liberated from the material world. In the Varnashram institution, the sannyasi, or the person in the renounced order of life, is considered to be the head or the spiritual master of all social statuses and orders. A Brahmin is considered to be the spiritual master of the 3 other sections of a society, namely Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, but a sannyasi who is on the top of the institution is considered to be the spiritual master of the Brahmins also. For a sannyasi, the first qualification should be fearlessness. Because a sannyasi has to be alone without any support or guarantee of support, he has simply to depend on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one thinks, after I leave my connections, who will protect me? He should not accept the renounced order of life. One must be fully convinced that Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his localized aspect as the Paramatma, is always within, that he is seeing everything, and he always knows what one intends to do. One must thus have firm conviction that Krishna as Paramatma will take care of a soul surrendered to him. I shall never be alone, one should think. Even if I live in the darkest regions of a forest, I shall be accompanied by Krishna, and he will give me all protection. That conviction is called abhayam, fearlessness. This state of mind is necessary for a person in the renounced order of life. So we're going to, this is a long purport, and he goes through all the qualities. So we'll gradually go on. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this chapter I always found very fascinating and very instructive. It begins, Krishna enumerating 26, there's actually 26 qualities here, that are, he says, are divine, meaning that they encourage and help one in one's path back to Godhead. And they're actually divided, as Srila Prabhupada will explain, according to the station one is in, the spiritual or social order. So he begins at the top with the qualities, especially of the sannyasis. And well, interestingly enough, this first quality mentioned here, first of all, there's this idea of being born with certain qualities. And it's certainly true. One takes his birth in a certain family according to previous karma and activities. So you're carrying forward tendencies from previous life. But at the same time, a child born into a family, the parents have a very great responsibility to invest the child, to train the child in the godly qualities, rather than either neglecting the child and allowing the TV to raise him today, or even worse, or to guide him in the wrong direction. So that's why it is said by Lord Rishabdev, Guru na satsat, swajano na satsat, pita na satsat, janni na satsat, taivin na tatsan, napatischa sasyan, namochiyejak samabetam mrityu. One should not become a guru or a relative or a mother or father or a deva or a husband unless one can liberate one's dependent. In other words, unless one is willing to train them for going back to Godhead, for liberation. Otherwise, one shouldn't bring someone into the world to become an authority figure. This is a very revolutionary statement, but this is how the books of knowledge, such as the Bhagavad Purana especially, are teaching us for the upliftment of society. Because society means that you're affected by everything else. Just like now, I mean, you know, this is a relatively nice place to live, Pacific Beach, right? In SanDiego in general, Pacific Beach. But now they've got all of these scooters and bikes going everywhere, and it's made it more aggravating. I mean, it's not a game breaker, but it's just one more thing that is kind of what you would call an adibautic misery, misery caused by others. It's not a major thing. But the point is that we're a society. And society as a whole, especially when the leaders don't possess any of these godly qualities, but rather they're more in the latter part of the chapter, demonic qualities, that affects everybody. Remember way back in chapter 3, where Krishna says, Yad yad atarati shreshtas tattadevet rojanaha sayat pramanam kurote lokas tadanuvartate. This is a very important verse. Krishna is speaking there about himself. He says, look, I don't have to do anything for anyone. I'm God. But yet I still do my duties, especially in Dwarka. When he was in Dwarka, he would go to the assembly, right? He would get his children married, everything very nicely, because the whole world is follow my path. If I didn't do them, then utsi deya ime loka, I would be the cause of the degradation of society. So people in authority, they have a great responsibility that comes with it. And the society as a whole is meant to be governed by the Vedic knowledge, which is embodied in the Brahmins and the sannyasis and the teachers. If society, then what happens when that doesn't take place, when the Brahmins become corrupt, then it's like the head is mad, and havoc is created. And so Srila Prabhupada's mission really was to train Brahmins who could embody, both in behavior and in their knowledge, the Vedic teachings, and to have these qualities and be examples for people, and impart them, to push back the darkness of the Kali Yuga. There's a great darkness of ignorance, and when there's ignorance reigns, then people are helpless, isn't it? So that's what's going on here. He mentions Garbhadan Samskar for the creation of good progeny, because after all, the society means new people coming in all the time. If you have a generation of fools and rascals coming up, then that's going to be hellish. That's why there are educational systems. You know, now they're attacking public education. It's crazy. They're defunding it, making it more difficult. You know, and even in higher education now, people go. And in my day, believe it or not, I attended college for a little while, and there were plenty of kids who went to college who wanted to study the humanities. They wanted to study philosophy, that's psychology, you know, that's a science, all kinds of things. Creative writing, you know, all kinds of stuff, because that's part of the culture, and it keeps people sane. If everybody is just wondering, oh, I got to get a good job, what's it going to be? They all take finance, they take engineering, everything. then what happens to questioning what's it all about? What's the purpose of it all? Without asking that question, the human life is you're not actually a human being. It really begins, what is it? Tato Brahma Jigyasa, inquiring into the meaning of life, into the source of everything. So here he begins. Now I'll just start with the first quality is fearlessness. Now this is especially true of sannyasis, because they're meant to feel themselves completely dependent on the Lord. Generally, in the old days, they go out into the forest, travel from place to place. They wouldn't have any sure source of income or even food. They would go from house to house, madhukari. You have to depend on Krishna from day to day. Now that's very conducive to chanting with great enthusiasm and feeling. To feel that, Krishna, please save me. That's why, what did Kunti pray? She said that when Krishna's about to leave, let those dangers that she enumerated happen again and again, because by seeing those dangers, we'll see you, and by seeing you, we won't see birth and death. Vipadak santu takshashvat tattva tattva jagat guru bhavatu darshanam yaksyat apunar bhava darshanam. Very poetic. Bhavatu darshanam yaksyat apunar bhava darshanam. You see? So that means that by feeling dependent on Krishna, one thinks of him very intensely, much more absorbed. And that's why Kunti says a couple of verses earlier, maybe one verse earlier, Janmaishaya Shutashibya, that one who is too intoxicated with good birth, wealth, beautiful body, right, or academic education, cannot address you with deep feeling, cannot call upon you from the bottom of their heart. And so the sannyasi, they're meant to go from place to place, not get hung up anywhere, 3 days max, to not feel too comfortable in any one spot. It's a very advanced position. But it's also one of the positions of feeling dependent on the Lord, of surrender. If you recall the 6 symptoms of surrender, Zachary, we're going to go through them. You know the first one? Anukulyasya sankalpa. Okay, it's worth knowing these. It's really important. Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjanam. This is the first 2. And you can see it kind of is like the forms of our discipline, any discipline. To accept those things favorable, even though you don't like it, but you accept it anyway. And to give up those things unfavorable, even though you're really attached to them. That's the beginning. Anukulyasya pratikulyasya varjanam. And then, Rakshishyatiti Vishwasko Gopta Devananantata. That's the Abhayam. Rakshishyatiti Vishwaso, Krishna will protect. What is that? Mare Krishna Rakeke, Rake Krishna Mareke. If Krishna wants to protect you, no one can kill you. And vice versa. If Krishna wants to kill you, no one can protect you. So, since I'm his devotee, I expect to be protected. Now, there may be some danger. I mean, we've had devotees die in plane crashes and car crashes, So it's not necessarily the physical body he's protecting, but it's your Krishna consciousness. Meaning that if you're really Krishna conscious, it doesn't matter what happens. I like to tell that story that I learned from working on Bhakti Charu Swami's memoirs. This was a couple of summers ago. It's called Ocean of Compassion, I think. Ocean of Mercy? Ocean of Mercy. So, did you read? You remember this? Twice. So he revealed something that we never knew before. We had heard, because Prabhupada speaks of it on a tape, how in 1943, was it? I think it was 43. Prabhupada was in Calcutta, and he was a householder, he was running his business. And but he was a member of the Gaudiya Math, who had been initiated by then, certainly many, many years. So the war's going on, World War II. And India was part of the Commonwealth, so it's completely aligned with Britain. British Raj is going on. So the Japanese bombed Calcutta. They came over and they're coming, And people had some warning, so many people evacuated the city, but some couldn't, and so they were left in Prabhupada in the city, and it turns out some of his godbrothers were there also. So the way Prabhupada tells it on the lecture is that he saw this as like the universal form. And then he gives the inimitable sound effects. right on the tape. Prabhupada is very good at that, you know. And many people were freaking out, you know. And Prabhupada was just saying, well, you know, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. But it turns out he also had a Harinam with some of his god brothers. They chanting, you know. And it's the safest place. Prabhupada said later, for the movement, the safest place to be is in Hare Krishna Kirtan. Because no matter what happens, everything is auspicious. Just like, you know, Krishna says to Arjuna at the beginning of the battle, before he even starts speaking, look, you know, how's the start? I forget, Labha, Labha, Jaya, Jaya. Is that, don't worry about gain or loss, victory or defeat. If you lose the battle, you go to heaven. If you win the battle, you enjoy a heavenly kingdom. It's a win-win. So if you're on Harinam, if the bomb falls on you, back to Godhead. If not, you're already back to Godhead. You're chanting. They all auspicious. So that's Abhayam. Generally Abhayam. That famous song. Bhajahure manna shinandanandana habhaya charanara bindure. Put it in English, you know. Oh, wretched, foolish mind, just give up all deceit and worship Krishna's fearless lotus feet. Don't waste this human life, stay close to devotees. Don't waste this human life, stay close to devotees and cross this worldly sea of misery. That's the song, and Prabhupada's name is in there. You love that song. Abhayam, Abhay Charanaravinda. And Prabhupada really showed the fearlessness. I've been reading the Lilamrita. You know, he's in Calcutta doing a program, the Pandal. He started with, I think, the Delhi Pandal, and it was the Bombay Pandal, a huge success. Thousands of people would come, you know. And now you have one in Calcutta, but in Calcutta they had the Naxalites. You know who the Naxalites are? Naxalites. They're like terrorists, communists, you know. So they sent a message to Prabhupada, leave or die. No, fly or die. Fly or die. And Prabhupada ignored it. He kept on with the program. So it's a very tense situation. So they show up, and Prabhupada says, give them some seats. You know, so right away he disarmed them, you know, because they have a place, you know. And they had the kirtan and everything, and nothing happened. You know what I mean? Their hearts were changed. Krishna within the heart. Another time in America, in 1970, the first big Rath Yatra in SanDiego, in San Francisco. I mean, really big, you know. It was the height of the hippies. The hippies went into the early 70s too, you know. So they had built 3 big carts. There's a beautiful video of this. You know, they're building the cart, little, you know, storefront like they had in New York, Frederick Street, you know. But devotees had come from all over the country, and they had gotten a vacant yacht across the street, and they're building all these big carts. So the video, you know, doesn't show this, but actually there was a threat from the Black Panthers. They regarded that Golden Gate Park as their territory, and they said, you know, if you have this, there's going to be we're going to be beat you up, you know, and have violence, you know. So, therefore, they didn't want to take Prabhupada to the Rath Yatra. They said, no, I must go anyway. So what they did is they you know, Prabhupada drove in a car, but they drove a circuitous route, so that the parade had been going on for a while before Prabhupada, you know, got there. But what had happened is that there was a fight, but the devotees had made friends with the Hell's Angels, who served as security. So they were fighting together, and we had our long sticks, which they used to prevent people from diving under the cart wheels, you know, which is a way of committing suicide and go back to Godhead. So to avoid that, they had those, and they were defending him well. So the rumble took place. Prabhupada didn't see it. He arrives, they stop the carts, he arrives, and he comes to get on Subhadra's cart. That's traditionally what it is. And then Prabhupada, there's this kirtan going on, and there's video of Prabhupada dancing as the devotees are singing, and it's very ecstatic. But the point was, he wasn't put off by this. So he had this quality, abhayam, to really feel oneself protected by the Lord. And that's part of the surrender. Rakshashatiti means that Krishna will protect, and Gopradve, Krishna will maintain. And Atmanakshepta Karpanye, those are the last 2 qualities. To have no separate interest from the Lord and always be meek and humble. These are the 6 of surrender. You surrender. As you remember at the beginning of the previous chapter, we had and then you enter into the process of devotional service. This is English. Yeah, I'll give it to you. Okay, so that's the first quality, and it's the essential quality for the sannyasi. And there's a few more for the sannyasis, which we'll read now. Go ahead. Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. The greatest fear? Well, the greatest fear is actually losing one's Krishna consciousness. Is to be put in a situation in which you feel that you can't take shelter of Krishna. I mean, for me, that would be the greatest fear. Most people, have their own lists. World War III, being out on the street, that's a big fear. The wolf that they call, a metaphor they call the wolf at the door. When people are it's all over this country. The economic crunch is such that people can barely live, check to check. If there's some emergency, they can't handle it. That's a low, I don't even know, low grade anxiety, which is a form of fear. And it corrodes your health, for one thing, to be always in a state of anxiety like that. And this is the way in which societies, disintegrate with mass movements and revolutions and all kinds of stuff, when people are pushed to a limit. So it depends on who you are, what the fear is. For myself, I would say, to not be in a situation where I could chant and have association of devotees. That's what devotees feel. The greatest fear is to lose the association of devotees. For me, anyway. Hare Krishna. All right, let's read at least one more quality. Then he, the sannyasi, has to purify his existence. That's sattva samshuddh here. He systematically goes through. There are so many rules and regulations to be followed in the renounced order of life. Most important of all, a sannyasi is strictly forbidden to have any intimate relationship with a woman. He is even forbidden to talk with a woman in a secluded place. Lord Chaitanya was an ideal sannyasi, and when he was at Puri, his feminine devotees could not even come near to offer their respects. They were advised to bow down from a distant place. This is not a sign of hatred for women as a class, but it is a stricture imposed on the sannyasi not to have close connections with women. One has to follow the rules and regulations of a particular status of life in order to purify his existence. For a sannyasi, intimate relations with women and possession of wealth for sense gratification are strictly forbidden. The ideal sannyasi was Lord Chaitanya himself, and we can learn from his life that he was very strict in regards to women. Although he is considered to be the most liberal incarnation of Godhead, accepting the most fallen conditioned souls, he strictly followed the rules and regulations of the sannyas order of life in connection with association with women. One of his personal associates, namely Chota Haridas, was associated with Lord Chaitanya along with his other confidential personal associates. But somehow or other, this Chota Haridas looked lustily on a young woman, and Lord Chaitanya was so strict that he at once rejected him from the society of his personal associates. Lord Chaitanya said, for a sannyasi or anyone who is aspiring to get out of the clutches of material nature and trying to elevate himself to the spiritual nature and go back home, back to Godhead, For him, looking toward material possessions and women for sense gratification, not even enjoying them, but just looking toward them with such a propensity, is so condemned that he had better commit suicide before experiencing such illicit desires. So these are the processes for purification. So this is very strict. That Choda Haridas story kind of really freaked the devotees out when they finally read it in the Anjalila. But the thing about it is that Prabhupada, he wasn't as strict as Lord Chaitanya. Even sannyasis who look at women but actually get married, he would encourage them to keep serving somehow. Most famously, Madhudvish Prabhu, who did a lot of service afterward. But it is a very important stricture. Yes, Prabhu. I don't recall two women being. I mean, it sounds like Jagai and Madai. You have to show me the actual thing, because I mean, I don't recall a pair of women dacoits. That's just kind of rare. All right, yeah, you track it down and we'll get it. All right, let's read one more paragraph here. So this is still with the sannyasi. The next item is Jnana Yoga Vyavastiti, being engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. Sannyasi life is meant for distributing knowledge to the householders and others who have forgotten their real life of spiritual advancement. A sannyasi is supposed to beg from door to door for his livelihood, but this does not mean that he is a beggar. Humility is also one of the qualifications of a transcendentally situated person, and out of sheer humility, the sannyasi goes from door to door, not exactly for the purpose of begging, but to see the householders and awaken them to Krishna consciousness. This is the duty of a sannyasi. If he is actually advanced and so ordered by his spiritual master, he should preach Krishna consciousness with logic and understanding. And if one is not so advanced, he should not accept the renounced order of life. But even if one has accepted the renounced order of life without sufficient knowledge, he should engage himself fully in hearing from a bona fide spiritual master to cultivate knowledge. A sannyasi or one in the renounced order of life must be situated in fearlessness, sattvasang shuddhi, purity, and jnana yoga, knowledge. So these are qualities that we should all cultivate. Purification of our existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge. The ideal is in sannyasi, but we should all cultivate it. I mean, if we don't cultivate knowledge, why are we sitting here? This is a part of it, to become well-versed so that we ourselves are convinced and we can convince others about the truth of Krishna consciousness. Okay. Well, there's still 5 minutes, so let's move on to one more. And now we move to the qualities of the householders. And of course, these are all virtuous qualities of all these classes. The next item is charity. Charity is meant for the householders. The householders should earn a livelihood by an honorable means and spend 50% of their income to propagate Krishna consciousness all over the world. Thus, a householder should give in charity to institutional societies that are engaged in that way. Charity should be given to the right receiver. There are different kinds of charity, as will be explained later on. Charity in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Charity in the mode of goodness is recommended by the scriptures, but charity in the modes of passion and ignorance is not recommended because it is simply a waste of money. Charity should be given only to propagate Krishna consciousness all over the world. This is charity in the mode of goodness. And you can see that dana and yajna often are overlap. It's a sacrifice. You take some of your hard-earned money and to give it for the propagation of Krishna consciousness. So that's charity, but it's also yajna. And the main idea is that money that you're giving in charity cannot be used for sense gratification anymore. So it's win-win. You get the benefit of serving Krishna and helping propagate and maintain the temple, whatever. And then you have less money to tempt you for sense gratification. So the idea is, yes, but the householder has to budget his money. Prabhupada always says 50%. I have yet to meet that householder who could actually give 50%. Maybe 50% of the net, not the gross. It's difficult. But the whole idea is to be pushing toward renunciation, simplicity, rather than temptation for sense gratification. It's harder in the household life because it's a concession. There's some sense gratification. So the tendency is, that's why they always need to be very respectful to the sannyasis, invite them in, take instruction, and live life according to the rules and regulations. Okay, and now we're going to read some of those rules and regulations in the Nectar of Devotion. Let's see, on 618, the last paragraph. One of you can remember that, I'm sure, for tomorrow. 618, last paragraph. Welcome. We've just finished our Bhagavad Gita reading, and now we're going to read from the Nectar of Devotion. Are we in Krishna book? Okay, Krishna book. Sorry. All right, let's see where we are. Okay. But where in Krishna book? That's the question. Did we read yesterday? Oh, that's right. We didn't read yesterday. That was Monday. Okay. Well, it must be Jarasan delivered. We haven't yet read about the killing of Jarasan. You remember? You would have remembered. It's very dramatic. Okay, so the Rajasuya sacrifice, Yudhishthira is planning for that. But to have the Rajasuya sacrifice, you have to have all the kings, neighboring kings, subdued. They have to offer homage or tribute to the main king. And Jarasan was not about to do that. He was a demon. He's very proud. So he had to be slain. So Uddhava advised them to go visit him in the guise of Brahmins, because he's also very respectful to the Brahmins, even though he's a demon. So that's what's going to happen now. Okay, so let's see. Lord Krishna continued, "There is no one in the three worlds of the universe, including the powerful demigods, who can surpass my devotees in any of the six opulences of wealth, strength, reputation, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Therefore, if you want to conquer the worldly kings, there is no possibility of their emerging victorious." When Krishna thus encouraged King Yudhishthira, the king's face brightened like a blossoming flower because of transcendental happiness. So he wanted to do the Rajasuya to honor Krishna, and Krishna is now encouraging him, so you know what's going to happen. So his face brightened like a blossoming flower because of transcendental happiness, and thus he ordered his younger brothers to conquer all the worldly kings in all directions. Krishna empowered the Pandavas to execute his great mission of chastising the infidel miscreants of the world and giving protection to his faithful devotees. In his Vishnu form, the Lord carries 4 weapons in his 4 hands: lotus flower, conch shell in 2 hands, and in the other 2 hands a club and a disc. The club and the disc are meant for the infidel miscreants and demons, and the lotus and the conch are for the devotees. But because the Lord is the Supreme Absolute, the result of all his weapons is one and the same. With the club and the disc, he chastises the miscreants so that they come to their senses and know that they are not all in all, for above them there is the Supreme Lord. And by bugling with the conch shell and offering blessings with the lotus, he always assures the devotees that no one can vanquish them, even in the greatest calamity. King Yudhishthira, being thus assured by the indication of Krishna, ordered his youngest brother Sahadev, accompanied by soldiers of the Srinjaya tribe, to conquer the southern countries. Similarly, he ordered Nakula, accompanied by the soldiers of the Matsya Desh, to conquer the kings of the western side. He sent Arjun, accompanied by the soldiers of Kekaya Desh, to conquer the kings of the northern side, and he ordered Bhimasen, accompanied by the soldiers of Madras, to conquer the kings of the eastern side. It may be noted that by dispatching his younger brothers to conquer in different directions, King Yudhishthira did not actually intend that they declare war upon the kings. Actually, the brothers started for different directions to inform the respective kings about King Yudhishthira's intention to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. The kings were thus informed that they were required to pay taxes for the execution of the sacrifice. This is the tribute. This payment of taxes to the Emperor Yudhishthira meant that the king accepted subjugation before him. In case of a king's refusal to act accordingly, there was certainly a fight. Thus, by their influence and strength, the brothers conquered all the kings in different directions, and they were able to bring in sufficient taxes, this means abundant taxes, and presentations which they brought before King Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira was very anxious, however, when he heard that King Jarasan of Magadha did not accept his sovereignty. Seeing King Yudhishthira's anxiety, Krishna informed him of the plan explained by Uddhava for conquering Jarasan. Bhimasen, Arjuna, and Lord Krishna then started together for Girivraja, the capital city of Jarasan, dressing themselves in the garb of Brahmanas. This was the plan devised by Uddhava before Krishna started for Hastinapur, and now it was given practical application. Jarasan was a very dutiful householder, and he had great respect for the Brahmins, even though he was a demon. He was a great fighter, a Kshatriya king, but he was never neglectful of Vedic injunctions. According to the Vedic injunctions, the Brahmins are considered to be the spiritual masters of all other castes. Lord Krishna, Arjuna, and Bhimasen were actually Kshatriyas, but they dressed themselves as Brahmins, and at the time when King Jarasan was to give charity to the Brahmins and receive them as guests, they approached him. Krishna, in the dress of a Brahmin, said to the king, "We wish all glories to your majesty. We 3 guests at your royal palace have come from a great distance to ask you for charity, and we hope that you will kindly bestow upon us whatever we ask. We know about your good qualities. A person who is tolerant is always prepared to tolerate everything, even though distressful. Just as a criminal can perform the most abominable acts, a greatly charitable person like you can give anything and everything for which he is asked. For a great personality like you, there's no distinction between relatives and outsiders. A famous man lives forever, even after his death. Therefore, any person who is completely fit and able to execute acts which will perpetuate his good name and fame, and yet does not do so, becomes abominable in the eyes of great persons. Such a person can't be condemned enough, and his refusal to give charity is lamentable throughout his whole life." I think he's getting the hint now. Your Majesty must have heard the glorious names of charitable personalities like Harishchandra, Rantidev, and Mudgala, who used to live only on grains picked up from the paddy field, and the great Maharaj Shibi, who saved the life of a pigeon by supplying flesh from his own body. These great personalities have attained immortal fame simply by sacrificing the temporary and perishable body. Krishna, in the garb of a Brahmin, thus convinced Jarasan that fame is imperishable, but the body is perishable. That fame is imperishable, but the body is perishable. If one can attain imperishable name and fame by sacrificing his perishable body, he becomes a very respectable figure in the history of human civilization. Okay, time out. While Krishna was speaking in the garb of a Brahmin, along with Arjuna and Bhima, Jarasan marked that the 3 of them did not appear to be actual Brahmins. There were signs on their bodies by which Jarasan could understand that they were Kshatriyas. Their shoulders were marked with impressions due to carrying bows. They had beautiful bodily structure, and their voices were grave and commanding. Thus he definitely concluded that they were not Brahmins, but Kshatriyas. He also thought that he had seen them somewhere before. He had already fought with Krishna 17 times. But, although these 3 persons were Kshatriyas, they had come to his door begging alms like Brahmins. Therefore he decided that he would fulfill their desires in spite of their being Kshatriyas, because they had already diminished their position by appearing before him as beggars. Under the circumstances, he thought, I am prepared to give them anything. Even if they ask for my body, I shall not hesitate to offer it to them. In this regard, he began to think of Bali Maharaj. Lord Vishnu, in the dress of a Brahmin, appeared as a beggar before Bali and snatched away all of his opulence and his kingdom. He did this for the benefit of Indra, who, having been defeated by Bali Maharaj, was bereft of his kingdom. Although Bali was cheated, his reputation as a great devotee, able to give anything and everything in charity, is still glorified throughout the three worlds. Bali Maharaj could guess that the Brahman was Lord Vishnu himself and had come to him just to take away his opulent kingdom on behalf of Indra. Bali's spiritual master and family priest, what's his name? Shukracharya, repeatedly warned him about this, but Bali did not hesitate to give in charity whatever the Brahman wanted, and at last he gave up everything to that Brahman. It is my strong determination, thought Jarasandha, that if I can achieve immortal reputation by sacrificing this perishable body, I must act for that purpose. The life of a Kshatriya who does not live for the benefit of the Brahmins is certainly condemned. Pretty good demon. Actually, King Jarasandha was very liberal in giving charity to Brahmins, and thus he informed Krishna, Bhima, and Arjuna. My dear Brahmins, you may ask for me whatever you like. If you so desire, you may take my head also. I am prepared to give it. After this, Krishna addressed Jarasandha as follows. My dear king, please note that we are not actually Brahmins, nor have we come to ask for food or grain. We are all Kshatriyas, and we've come to beg a duel with you. We hope that you will agree to this proposal. You may note that here is the second son of King Pandu, Bhimasena, and the third son of Pandu, Arjuna. As for myself, you may know that I am your old enemy Krishna, the cousin of the Pandavas. When Krishna disclosed their disguise, Jarasandha laughed very loudly, and then in great anger and in a grave voice he exclaimed, You fools! If you want to fight with me, I immediately grant your request. But Krishna, I know that you are a coward. I refuse to fight with you because you became very confused when you faced me in the battlefield. Out of fear of me, you left your city, Mathura, and now you've taken shelter in the sea. Therefore, I must refuse to fight with you. As far as Arjuna is concerned, I know that he is younger than me and is not an equal fighter. I refuse to fight with him because he is not in any way an equal competitor. But as far as Bhimasena is concerned, I think he's a suitable competitor to fight with me. After speaking in this way, King Jarasandha immediately handed a very heavy club to Bhimasena. He himself took another, and all of them went outside the city walls to fight. Bhimasena and King Jarasandha engaged themselves in fighting, and with their respective clubs, which were as strong as thunderbolts, they began to strike each other very severely, both of them being eager to fight. They were both expert fighters with clubs, and their techniques of striking each other were so beautiful that they appeared to be two dramatic artists dancing on a stage. When the clubs of Jarasandha and Bhimasena loudly collided, the impact sounded like that of the big tusks of two fighting elephants, or like a thunderbolt in a flashing electrical storm. When two elephants fight together in a sugarcane field, each of them snatches a stick of sugarcane, holds it tightly in his trunk, and strikes the other. At that time, the sugar cane becomes smashed by such heavy striking. Similarly, when Bhimasena and Jarasandha were heavily striking each other with their clubs on different parts of their bodies, namely the shoulders, arms, collarbones, chest, thighs, waist, legs, their clubs became torn to pieces. In this way, all of the clubs used by Jarasandha and Bhimasena became ruined, and so the two enemies prepared to fight with their strong-fisted hands. Jarasandha and Bhimasena were very angry, and they began to smash each other with their fists. The striking of their fists sounded like the striking of iron bars, or like the sound of thunderbolts. And the two warriors appeared to be like two elephants fighting. Neither was able to defeat the other, however, for both were expert in fighting. They were of equal strength, and their fighting techniques were also equal. Neither Jarasandha nor Bhimasena became fatigued or defeated in the fighting, although they struck each other continuously. At the end of each day's fighting, they lived at night as friends in Jarasandha's palace, and the next day they fought again. In this way, they passed 27 days in fighting. On the 28th day, Bhimasena told Krishna, My dear Krishna, I must frankly admit that I can't conquer Jarasandha. Krishna, however, knew the mystery of Jarasandha's birth. Jarasandha, as is mentioned by his name, Jarasandha, had been born in two different parts from two different mothers. When his father saw that the baby was useless, he threw the two parts into the forest. There they were later found by a witch named, guess, Jara, who was skilled in the black arts. She managed to join the two parts of the baby from top to bottom. Knowing this, Krishna therefore also knew how to kill him. He hinted to Bhimasena that since Jarasandha was brought to life by the joining of two parts of his body, he could be killed by the separation of these two parts. Thus Lord Krishna transferred his power into the body of Bhimasena and informed him of the device by which Jarasandha could be killed. Krishna picked up a twig from a tree, took it in his hand and bifurcated it. In this way he hinted to Bhimasena how Jarasandha could be killed. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is omnipotent, and if he wants to kill someone, no one can save that person. Sound familiar? Similarly, if he wants to save someone, no one can kill him. We're going to have to stop. But we'll learn what happens tomorrow. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Oh, I still forgot to read about Vakreshwar Pandit. Very fallen. Hare Krishna. It is Independence Day.
Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine namaha Krishna Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami iti namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Asachari Shakarne Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Rasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Rasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Rasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Jaya Radha Giridhari, Radha Giridhari, Radhe. Jaya Radha Giridhari, Radha Giridhari, Radhe. Gopremanandu Jaya Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Bhagavad-gita Ashtotar Shishima, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Bhagavad-gita Ashtotar Shishima, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Chikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Bhagavan Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jagadnath Swami Ki Jai. Ganga Mahi Ki Jai. Yamuna Mahi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Varanga. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Avaladhaladandahini Hiranyakashipo Rakshama Shilatankanakalaye Ito Nishinga Parato Nishingo Yato Yato Anikato Nishinha Bahir Nishingo Rindaye Nishingo Nasihamadim Sharanam Tapaye Kapakara Kamara Bare Naka Amita Shringa Darita Hiranyakashipu Tarungrena Bhagavadgita Naradirupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Kapakara Kamala Hare Adita Shina Radhika Abhakara Kamalavare Nakahamadita Shinga Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tarungrena Bhagavadgita Naradirupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Vakara Kamalava Amarta Shinga Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Keshavadrita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Narari Rupa Jai Nrsimhadev, Nrsimhadev, Jai Nrsimhadev, Jai Nrsimhadev. Sri Bhagavan ki Jai, Bala Maharaj ki Jai, Prabhupada
Very good. Very hard.
King Ache.
Where?
Yes. King Ache. King Ache. Cashew berry.
Is it?
Yeah. Yes, yeah, cashew.
It's Burfi with cashew.
No, I don't have this cashew yet.
No, I don't need Burfi. That's right. Most cashew.
Hare Krishna. Hare Prabhu?
Yes, yes.
Hare Haribo.
Yep. Well, make it a prasad.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes. I'm going to make sure it's... Right. Yeah.
So Friday, what this Old Town or Balboa?
Well, to see, we're still deciding. I think Bhagavad.
Balboa?
Bhagavad is good.
Oh,
On Friday, yes.
okay.
What time are you guys going?
7:30.
Bhagavad?
Yeah, Balboa.
What's there?
Oh, downtown, this Broadway and Harinam chanting. Are you going?
I don't know yet.
Evening.
Yeah, if I'm evening I don't come that much. I come like morning, like around 12, 1 o'clock. Hare Krishna. You remember me this time now? I was just joking. Were you the last on this?
Yeah, because are you second name?
Good.
It's in the vegetables. They're
What?
very finely cut up.
Sabji?
Something very good. Yeah.
Probably would cook quicker.
Did you see?
Yeah, just got it.
The last?
Yeah.
Just in time? Maybe just in time.
Yeah. We're leaving the house, and I was thinking, I was hoping I might get darshan, but I didn't think so. Then maybe 2 of those. 3. And some milk.
When I was cleaning this, We like I broke one of the...
Oh, you?
Yeah.
This
I checked this, I switched this Prabhupada, right?
Because basically, when you do that,
Does not.
that means your fingers have to touch
So
the
what?
actual...
No, like the bar, see, 1, 2,